guys, welcome to the Yuletide Hangout, and we have 3 guests already, which I'm actually pretty excited about. Calon, would you mind? You've got an echo. Could you mute your mic when you're not talking?
I am right now setting things up, so.
Okay.
Give me a sec.
I'm going to mute you until you've got everything all set up. Okay, there we go. So, welcome, guys. We've got Wind in the World Tree here to talk about Yuletide a little bit and to kind of chill. We're doing kind of a Q&A thing. Calon's going to talk about Sumerian stuff. And even though there really isn't a winter sort of in the Kemetic area, like in the Egyptian region, there are some holidays and such that Celeri said that she wanted to talk about. So welcome. And as you know, as per usual, I'll be talking about Greek stuff. I'm going to be talking about Poseideia, and it's also going to kind of be just like a usual hangout. Like we'll do Q&A stuff. As per usual, to speed things along a little bit, we will be answering questions from the chat, but anything that is super chatted will get priority just because you guys are wonderful and helping support the channel. So thank you all so much for showing up. And speaking of which, Ikeda jumped the gun before we even went live. Here's to public debauchery. So thank you so much, Ikeda. So I guess I'll go from, clockwise a little bit to let you guys all introduce yourselves. Celeri, you've hung out with me a couple times here before, and we're still trying to get that interview set up. But for anybody who doesn't know you, because we've been getting some newer people, give us kind of an idea of what you do.
Hey everyone, I'm Celeri, and I run the YouTube channel Celeri's Garden. And over there I talk a lot about Kemetic theology and sort of philosophy. And I do a lot of introductory content, like defining terms and explaining stuff.
Wind in the World Tree, Beafeld, you have you've been around in the community quite a lot. Like you're one of the folks that is kind of a staple within Ocean's Hold, but you've never been on my channel before. So let's talk about it, because I'm a big fan of your channel. I gave you a shout out in one of my videos.
Oh, thank you very much. I honestly don't know what to say. I'm an Anglo-Saxon pagan, and I know Ocean in real life and Wolf in real life, and I'm just happy to be here.
I mean, you've written a few of the rituals for the Hold too.
Oh yeah. I write a whole bunch of rituals, but yeah, I don't really know. I just do my my thing, and you know.
All right, and Calon, are you all set up yet? You can message me.
Good.
Okay, sweet. So Calon, do you want to give a quick introduction?
Yeah, I'm Calon. Never been on this channel before. I don't know what this channel is. I don't even really know why I'm here. I was just moved from my snake hole.
Yeah, Calon is a snake with perpetual short-term memory loss. It doesn't matter how many times I have her on here, she will never remember.
It's not short. Look, just because humans may have a bigger memory area doesn't mean I'm... Wait, where am I again? Anyhow, so yeah, I have a YouTube channel, and I do stuff with Sumerian. I am so far building up. I'm going to release a video. I think it's Wednesday is when it's scheduled, on the goddess Nanche, goddess of social justice and whatnot, she who cares for the orphans. And yeah, I basically do Sumerian theology and reconstruction there because why not?
Yeah, and like I actually have helped you out with a couple of the scripts on your channel.
Oh yeah, you have. Wait, I have scripts? Oh
Yeah, you learned how to use them when you started doing edited content.
It's tough being a snake on YouTube. All right.
Hey, look, like at the very least, as a snake, you know how to read. That's better off than Ocean is doing. Calcifer has to do all his reading for him.
This is true. This is true.
So I'm going to start off by talking a little bit about Poseideia, because that is the holiday that I celebrate around the solstice. By the way, interesting thing, for anybody who's up here in Washington, I live in the Puget Sound region, which for those of you who know anything about our climate, it does not snow. Let me reiterate, it does not snow. It's very, very rare. It happens maybe every 4 or 5 years. It is snowing right now. They're
Oh,
these
no,
big
wow.
fat flakes. We do not have snowplows. Like, we borrow them from the east side of the state because they do snow. Like, they have that. But the entire west side of my state is currently snowing. It is 34 degrees out there, so it's a little bit warmer than it should be for that. But yet, here we are. So, roads are going to be a little bit dangerous tonight. But yeah, it is snow on the solstice. You know, what a better blessing could you expect from the gods, and maybe curse if you're out there driving in it.
Oh, that is awesome.
So yeah, that's incredible. But
Yeah.
Snake.
Yeah, actually, it looks like a lot of our snow ended up melting today because we don't have very much yet.
that's fair. You're further north than I am, aren't you?
Yeah, up in like East Canada region. It's shocking we don't have very much snow yet.
You're in the non-existent time zone.
Yeah, it is unseasonably warm right now.
So coming back to, Poseideia is something that there's some debate in the community about when to celebrate it. Oh, look, Science Side Up is here. Hi, Maddie.
Hey, team.
Our resident heretical Christian.
Hi.
What
Yeah.
holiday does the Christians celebrate?
It's one of our lesser ones. It's called Christmas.
Oh,
So for those of you who have not seen my interview with Maddie, do you want to give yourself a quick introduction as to why you were the very first Christian we ever had on our show?
I can. Hey, team. I'm Maddie. Allie and I met because I talked about nuclear things
On the channel that shall not be named.
Yeah, and I was excited because I made a friend during COVID.
Yeah, you and I helped each other through a lot of crap during COVID. Like there was all of the all the things on everything.
Yeah. And I happen to be a Christian. I'm Episcopalian. But I guess I self-identify as a heretical one because I'm not super interested in like converting people or being disrespectful of other people's faiths and points of view.
Well, I mean, didn't you and I have a conversation that you're kind of a monolatist-ish too? Like,
yeah, we did. Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that I remembered that conversation correctly because, like, that's one of those things that, like, as far as everybody here talking about all the other gods, you're not going to be like, well, all of them are just mine, but different names.
No, I think that's kind of bullshit, right? So I guess my kind of standard introduction for myself when I'm stepping into polytheist spaces, especially, is like, look, I've only ever had an encounter with one deity, but like that doesn't mean. How hypocritical would it be for me to say that, like, therefore that invalidates everyone else's experience with whatever deity or deities they've experienced? That seems silly. And I'm not about it. Yeah.
So I was starting to explain Poseideia, which is the holiday that I celebrate on the solstice. And Beafeld, you might know a little bit about this too. There's a bit of debate in the Hellenic community about when exactly Poseideia happens, because there's some evidence that in some regions of Greece, including Athens, it happened on or very close to the solstice, and others think that it happened on Poseideon 8, which is Poseideon is one of the various months of the Hellenic year. They're all based off of the lunar calendar, and then there's a couple of extra days sprinkled in to make it out to a proper calendar. So some of the Hellenic community celebrates it on Poseideon 8. I personally celebrate it on the solstice because I've seen enough evidence that it was celebrated on the solstice, and especially that the revelry and the feasting and all of that, it lines up so much with other like pan-European religions that it just seems like, hey, if we've got this holiday, we might as well celebrate it together, right? So Poseideia is interesting because a lot of the rules of festivals kind of got thrown out the window for it. There was a gigantic feast, many sacrifices, like everything from pigs to cows to, sheep to all kinds of things, like whatever they could get from the surrounding region, they had tons. And then there would be phallic and gynecologically shaped cakes that were part of the feasting because there was a fertility aspect to the festival. And then the descriptions in Pausanias and some of the other writers, historians, traveling historians, there was, for lack of a better way to put it, debauchery that would run through the streets. Men and women were allowed to commingle, and there were offerings to fertility deities that were given effectively via, conjugal interactions. I'm trying to be very careful because dear Susan is, much, much more chaste than anybody else in this chat currently. But she's kind of, dear Susan is very, very concerned about what we're allowed to say in the first 20 minutes or so of the video. But for lack of a better way to put it, there was rampant debauchery that would run through the streets, and commingling of a rather forceful sort. And it was all in the celebration of fertility. In fact, it was said that if a baby was conceived on Poseideia, that there was a special blessing that would happen. And no, Borealis, it's not boobs that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the gynecologically shaped cakes and phallic cakes, the things that were consumed as fertility type offerings and as fertility feasting. So we have, much like Saturnalia, we had in ancient Greece, there would be this massive, just crazy celebratory festival where, people would, for lack of a better way to put it, bone each other, as part of the celebration. It's one of the few times that particular type of miasma didn't seem to matter as much, though I'm assuming it seemed to have happened on the third day after most of the offerings were given, so I have no clue. Do you guys have anything to add? Is there anything else that you guys happen to know about Poseideia? I've read up on it a lot.
Huh? Oh. Nothing.
I would just, if you happen to be in the Boston area, there's a great bakery called Sweet and Nasty that you can get your correctly shaped cakes from.
Exactly.
Though, if you do have pastry pastry bags, you can make your own corruptly shaped cakes. It's not that difficult, and there are tutorials online. Yuletide is Celtic, kind of. Yuletide is a mix of different cultures. Beafel, do you want to kind of take over from here and talk a little bit about the more commonly known solstice holidays?
Well, sure. Yule is widespread across basically the entire Germanic area. Whether you were with the Franks, or whether you were in continental Germany, or whether you were in Scandinavia, or whether you were in England, it was all essentially Yule. Whether it's Jol with a Yule, or whether it's Geola Yule in England, or whatever else, it's all basically Yule. And to be perfectly honest, it's not going to be something terribly unfamiliar. If you are a person who is in Western culture, who has experienced Christmas time, you have experienced Yule.
A lot of the Christmas traditions, that's part of the reason why, the Jehovah's Witnesses say that it's, pagan, because there's a lot of pagan elements to it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and there's essentially just this flavor of it that just smacks of not Christian. Essentially, Christmas looks pagan, and it looks pagan because it is essentially a holdover from all of that, or at least the way that it's approached in modern day. Not necessarily, the most Christian aspects of it are going to be, of course, the three wise men and the gifts that they give and baby Jesus. But then you get into some other things that it's like, where is this in the Christmas story again? And when you start getting into those things, you're probably dipping into something that's somewhat of a folkloric holdover.
Didn't Wolf have an excellent post fairly recently about the alignment of the planets and such, and how that was a yearly thing?
Not this particular alignment, but it's something that pagans have noticed for quite a while.
We're talking about the solstice?
Yeah, we're talking
Jupiter,
about
Saturn.
we're talking about the planetary alignment that may have been the stars that guided the the wise men, quote unquote.
Well, apparently there is some sort of conjunction that happens about every 20 years. It's most of the time on the side of the sun that we can't see. And so it doesn't happen as frequently where it's actually visible. Although I went out inside and I saw it. I got my telescope out and I went outside and I looked at that thing, and I can tell you that it is not one star. Like, I don't know what they were trying to like peddle us on the news, but they are very clearly two right next to each other. And there is no one Christmas star. I don't know what the hell they were trying to come across with that, because I was out there. I was trying to see that.
See, we Babylonians are right.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put on my science hat real fast. The thing that was visible today was Jupiter and Saturn,
Yeah.
which is the first time they've been prominent like that in about 800 years. I don't know. I've seen some random nonsense about a Christmas star on Facebook, but people think I'm into that stuff because I like actual science, but I'm like, dude, I don't care if it's a blood moon. I don't even know what that means. That's not a thing. But yeah, no, the thing today of Jupiter and Saturn, super cool. They're not that prominent in the sky very often.
We did have a rather special Samhain this year because Samhain fell on a full moon, and that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah. That was a special treat. But that's actually tied to the metatonic cycle. So you'll get something relatively close to that, about every 19 or so years.
That's cool. So do you want to talk a little bit about some of the Yule traditions that you don't see as much in Christmas, or at least not as much in Western Christmas? Because obviously there's the Yule tree is kind of traditional, and you've got the Yule log as well that kind of gets held from the previous year and seasoned. But there are a few things, namely the burning of, if I recall correctly, there's some kind of effigy that you guys like to construct and burn, and I'm kind of interested in some of those, and I'm sure the audience is as well.
Well, there is this thing that gets built every year, and some years it gets burnt, and they're not intending to burn it. It's this gigantic Yule goat, and essentially this gigantic Yule goat that they build. I forget where it is. It's like Sweden or something like that, but whatever. They build this gigantic straw goat that's just begging to get set on fire. And some years, someone sneaks by and lights the sucker up. And, my favorite year was the year where Santa and Frosty pull out a longbow and fire off a flaming arrow at it.
Ah, Santa. Always a good hero.
That's kind of glorious.
Yeah, it actually got caught on film, so... Yeah, it was absolutely amazing.
That's freaking cool.
But
so, are there any other traditions that you'd like to kind of talk about the significance of that are not as well known?
Well, I mean, there are some foodways that essentially get passed down. A lot of what we think of as Christmas foods, like a Christmas ham, may have something to do with the pagan Yule, because there are some boar related rituals that have been written about with Yule, like grabbing the boar bristles and making oaths or promises or boasts, and just the mere fact of eating pig at all is a pretty pagan act. But
yeah, because the prohibition on it from the Judeo-Christianic things, which I'm going to remind everybody, Christianity started as a specific messianic Jewish apocalypse cultus. That's what it started as. It kind of evolved into other things when Paul got his hands on it, but that's how it started.
Yeah.
Speaking of boars, by the way, for the Hellenists in my audience, today is 2 Poseideia 6, which means that it is Artemis's day. So, EA Artemis. So,
I think though that the one thing that I really could bring to this this Yule business is that there is some debate on the timing of Yule, whether it occurs now or whether it occurs in another point. I'm an Anglo-Saxon pagan though, and I'm getting my source from the Venerable Bede, and the Venerable Bede essentially says that there is a double month of Yule, and that the double month of Yule, so Era Yule and After Yule, it receives its name from the day in which the sun begins to turn back to increasing, which places it, if we trust the Venerable Bede, then on the solstice itself. As opposed to some other sources from later times that might have it pegged somewhere else.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't realize that there was debate over Yuletide timing too, because it's been so like mainstreamed that people just kind of accept that it's on the solstice.
Yeah, there's a small but extremely annoyingly vocal cadre of folks who try and tell everybody that they're wrong for celebrating.
Even sometimes within my own communities for celebrating Poseideia when I do, and it's like, look, there is split evidence and also not a lot of it, so I can pick. Damn it.
See, the nice thing about being a Sumerian recon is that nobody else knows, so I don't have to put up with this trash.
I mean, I could be obnoxious and say that, like, this is the season of Advent, not Christmas. You're not supposed to have any decorations up yet. But, I mean, that's just following my own liturgical calendar.
So, Calon, since you spoke up, would you like to talk a little bit about celebrations that might be going on this time of year in Sumeria?
So, Sumerian calendars are kind of not at all aligned with our modern day calendars, even though they're 365 days. In fact, this month, for me, just started yesterday. And so because of that, the Sumerians, by the way, they were pretty pragmatic in how they named their months. They would just name it after the festivals. Oh, and there are no weeks in Sumer. That's the other thing. So this month, it's in Uruk, which is one of the areas I reconstruct from, it is going to be the Ezem Ma'ana, which basically means the Feast of the Boat of Heaven, which basically refers to, well, it's kind of debated on what exactly it refers to. We have some, like, various allotment texts saying that various, like, sheep are supposed to be allotted to this or that god. It seems to be, in some ways, a reference to the myth of Enki and Inanna, where basically Inanna goes ahead and drinks Enki under the table and steals the May and gives it to man so that man can basically begin civilization.
That's kind of glorious. Inanna drinks Enki under the table.
Yes. And steals the May.
Guess those boys can't handle their liquor.
And that's why we have civilization. But yes, that will be the celebration that I will be celebrating. But the thing with Sumerian,
you've got a question from a super chat. Thank you, Akeda, for the second super chat of the stream. For Calon, wasn't coupling, meaning the kind of debauchery that I was talking about, a regular part of Ishtar/Inanna's worship? Do you want to talk about whether or not those are the same deity also?
As far as I'm concerned, they're the same deity. There's a continuity and whatnot. There was a point at which they were separate deities, but then sort of like, I guess, mingled. Mesopotamian deities in general, when talking about them theologically, can be a rather interesting topic, which I'll have to obviously make a video on. As for commingling, I mean, it kind of depends on what you mean. Like, Inanna had sacred prostitution. It's not much more I can say about that. There is also a very...
Yeah, your gods are very not concerned by miasma.
I mean, yes and no. Like, we have our own forms of, like, what would be considered, like, sin or pollution. And sex in ancient Sumer was not like, it wasn't viewed as dirty. It was just viewed as a process and part of creating life. So it kind of makes sense. And also, Inanna is the goddess of sex. Like the forbidden tree motif that you see in like Christianity with Eve, you can see origins of that in like Sumerian mythology, where Inanna eats the golden fruit, except the golden fruit doesn't give her like sort of knowledge beyond animals. It gives her knowledge of sex. So, but yeah, basically,
I suppose boning is going to be a running theme through the stream. Like, this is just going to happen.
well, there's a reason why I say I will never monetize Sumerian content. Like the way he creates the tigers, for example, kind of not something that is monetizable. But in regards to that question, divine coupling is also an interesting term there, because the gods and the various like who are the head priests or priestesses of various ritual centers in Sumer were generally considered to be married to the god or goddess that they served. Like in Duana, the first woman poet in recorded history was a god spouse for Nana.
Ikeda, again, with another $5 super chat. You are being so generous tonight. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Like, it really freaking helps, especially with the financial shit I've been going through lately. Almost thou dost persuade me to become a pagan. One of these days. Nah, I'm kidding. Nobody here is interested in converting anybody, which is honestly kind of amazing. Like, I did a whole video on why, like, proselytization is a problem, and Maddie actually saw that video before many other people did. I sent it to her. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you thought about that? Because you were kind of in the corner, like, waving pom-poms for that one.
I was waving pom-poms for that one. Yeah, no, I think proselytizing is bogus. Not sure how PG we have to be.
You can swear. It's just like gratuitously referring to sex or other things. If I get flag and there's a manual review, swearing is okay as long as it's not in the first like 5 minutes of the stream. If we start talking too much about like where private parts are mashing together, then YouTube might take issue. Like it's a very like, consider Dear Susan to be like Christian wine mom.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, so I was definitely waving pom-poms for that one, because the idea of like proselytizing for or against any faith tradition assumes that the person proselytizing knows better, right? So if I was trying to convert someone else to my religion, I am saying that, like, yes, I, Maddie, of all 7 billion humans on the planet, and every human who's ever lived, my beliefs on faith, right, and the deity that I interact with, that's the one true, correct, only way to interact with the divine, or the one correct understanding of the divine. And I think that's just incredibly, incredibly arrogant and disrespectful to literally every other human who's ever walked the earth, right? Because so I work off the assumption that, like, I'm wrong. I just don't know what I'm wrong about, right? I can only do my best to be less wrong and, like, be honest in my seeking after the divine in whatever that looks like. And I have to be open to the idea that, like, me and Ali or anybody else, or Calon or anybody else here can
that literally everybody in this stream is a different religion, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. we all have asked fundamentally the same questions, I think, and have come up with different answers, and that doesn't make any one of us more right than the other. It just means that we all are different, have different experiences, again, with the divine, to use the most inclusive term I can think of. And if you're going to interact with a person of a different faith tradition than yours, you have to or if you're just going to be a human who, like, exists on planet Earth, like, you have to approach other people from a place of respect.
So for those of you who don't know, by the way, Dear Susan is a YouTuber term for YouTube because the CEO of, I believe, Google is her name is Susan. So Dear Susan is a way to refer to YouTube without actually saying YouTube and having them get mad at you if they do a manual review of your video. Oh, we have an atheist invasion, guys. Hi, Nervardia. Welcome.
Hey, hello.
Oh,
Well,
we lost
what's the-
Celeri. I was about to call in Celeri. Is Celeri
Wait, what's
okay?
the atheist doing here? Kick the atheist out. No.
All right,
We
bye.
just talked about being respectful of all faiths and lack of faith.
Right.
Correct. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not
Even
respectful at
atheism,
all, like,
even the faith of
seriously.
atheism.
I'm just not respectful at all. It's like, well, I don't even know why I'm here, really.
Yeah, exactly. You're here because of a snake. That's what you're here for.
That's bait. Well, I thought you would be there for a snake because of a snake.
I'm always.
Like-
I have a snake right behind me, so I'm always with a snake.
Yeah, I have two over there.
You should maybe
Snakes of a scale together?
Yeah.
Slither together.
I'm not going to get up during this stream because it is very hot and I don't have pants on.
Yeah, so Nervardia is from an imaginary place. She's a NASA shill. Welcome.
Mm-hmm. Hello.
Did you get your NASA check this month? I sent it out. I'm
I would like
Look,
to point out
They're
my
just-
channel. Look, my channel has 300 subscribers, and I got accused of being a NASA shill or something like that because you're great that you get paid for that opinion. When it was like, guys, 5G doesn't cause viruses. Like,
yeah, it
yeah,
does.
it's funny that. Yeah, and not just says hello.
excellent.
Oh, hi, Naja.
Yeah.
He's also from that imaginary place, isn't he?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
he's
neither
even-
neither of them exist. This is a very sophisticated projection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's just like it's just kind of weird like that. How I'm just sorry. I just have to bring the worst things out for people. Yeah, anyway. Sorry, I'm just a little bit confused right now.
Mero has a question from Gainer. How hot is it currently in the imaginary continent?
Approximately the surface of the sun.
Maddie, do you happen to know how hot that is, or do we need Google Foo?
What is it? 4,000, whatever. I don't. Which part of the
I
sun?
think it's
There's
something at
multiple
4,000 degrees
surfaces.
Celsius or something. And
We
I'm
don't
going to find out how.
We don't use that Celsius nonsense here. This is an American chat.
I
Okay,
am
well-
this close, Maddie.
Yeah.
You might agree with me. I am this close to just going up and just doing a rant video of going, fucking do metric, you asshole.
So I'm I'm a, in atmospheric sciences for grad school, and so I can't, like, when I think about my research stuff, right, I completely think in metric, right? So I can tell you how large the Arctic is in like terms of kilometers and understand that scale. But if I'm trying to like drive to the grocery store, I'm like, I have no idea how long a kilometer is, right? Like, so it's so strange to me for like the different spaces of, if I'm thinking about science, I think in metric. But if I'm thinking about like interactions with normal everyday humans, I think in like English units, and I cannot convert between the two. It's completely different parts of my brain.
Okay,
Yeah, I have the
32
exact same
degrees
problem,
Celsius.
like any sort of STEM major, which, for the record, Nervardi and I are very good friends and talk to each other sporadically, but for hours at a time when we do. And I was popping off earlier about like misinformation in my own field of science and how annoying that was. So that was fun. But Mero, since you're here, you're going to be helping me out on a video for Thursday, aren't you? Do you want to talk a little bit about what we're working on?
Yes, I just filmed it, which is why I have pretty face. My face is pretty.
Your
Usually it's
makeup
not
is
this
on
pretty.
point.
Yes, I was actually going to use the green screen, and then I put on the makeup, and then I was like, God damn it!
So we don't have to talk about who it is yet, but somebody in the community just so happened to piss me off a little bit. Banfield, you know a little bit about this too. But yeah, there's somebody in our community. I'm not going to name names until the video drops, but there is somebody in our community who has decided to, well, for lack of a better way to put it, very mild mask denialism, but lots and lots of potential super spreader nonsense. And I asked my friend Mero to help me out with kind of explaining why a gathering of 15 people at this time of year when COVID is literally exploding across this country is a very dangerous thing to do.
It's a little bit of a dangerous thing. So yeah, it's a little bit. I hope what I did, it was just off the cuff, but I hope what I did was effective enough. I will probably edit it and get it to you tonight, hopefully.
Sweet. Thank you.
No, you won't, Mara, because you'll be here.
Oh, goodbye.
Wait,
Hey,
what are you, like 16 hours ahead?
I don't.
It depends on which times. It depends on which time zone, because like she's actually further ahead for you than she is for me, because we're on different coasts. Remember?
Yeah, fair.
It's 10:02 in the afternoon here.
Okay. Yeah, you're.
Yeah. Nervardia exists tomorrow.
Yeah, sorry. I was just my sister lives in Okinawa, and so like I know the translation for her off the top of my head. And I was like, wait, is that further away? It's farther away, which doesn't seem real, but that's all right.
Yeah, no, we aren't real. Stop with this lying. God damn it.
Yeah, this is a no-lie zone. Only facts and only the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
The truth.
Beafeld, you said that you used to kind of be into Roman stuff a little bit. Do you know anything about Saturnalia? Because I am not as well educated on Roman stuff as I am Greek stuff, and as many people try to tell me they're the same thing, I'm a hard polytheist. They are different gods. Don't at me. So I haven't gotten
you
as
on Twitter. Give me one second.
But I never actually got as educated on the Roman side of things. So I know a lot about Poseideia, but I don't know as much about Saturnalia, and I know a bunch of my audience is celebrating that right now.
You know, I don't know as much about it as I would like to know about it. It was not something that really came up in my studies. I was less interested in learning about Saturnalia than I was about other things.
Huh. Well, hopefully, like there are apparently a couple of Religio Morana folks in my chat that are making it very, very known that they celebrate Saturnalia.
No, actually, they celebrate Poseideia. They just don't realize it.
Yeah, Saturnalia, it does actually have a lot of similarities to Poseideia, except the Romans did everything much more intensely, so...
Yeah. Still, I think I'll stick with the Festival of the Boat of Heaven. It's a nice festival.
Aren't there, like, goat flails involved in Saturnalia?
I thought that was Lupercalia.
Is that Yeah, you're right.
I think it's
I think
Lupercalia.
it
It is
Lupercalia.
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 Most of the Roman stuff I know, sadly enough, is about Christian things, because getting into arguments about how much the Christians took from the Greeks is one of my favorite things to do. Maddie and I we had a fun conversation, do you remember, about how much Platonism is in the New Testament?
Yes, we did. It's all the things that I like disagree with in the New Testament are like are mostly Platonist ideas. I'm like, that's a great like framework for abstract math, less so humans.
But I mean, it's not even a good framework for abstract math, because like they think numbers are real and literal and like exist as physical, semi-physical things.
Well, they do. I know. I'm Australian.
Yeah, I know. We all would like to believe that Nervardia is a real physical.
Right.
I can't call you a thing. You're too much of a person to be a thing. But
I'm
No,
very,
actually,
very
I
bad.
I can't call her a thing because I programmed her.
Yeah. No, I'm a very advanced AI. All I think is in ones and zeros, really.
But
I'm surprised you haven't been hacked by some bot that's trying to sell us something yet.
Okay, I have like a question for the group, kind of in the allyship space of if I wanted to like wish you happy holidays, but for your what would be the appropriate way to do that, right? Like,
So Poseideia or Happy Poseideia would be the way that you would say it for me.
Okay. And with my like obnoxious Southern accent that will just never go away.
Beafeld?
Glad Yule or Merry Yule or Happy Yule.
Okay. Well, glad Yule.
Ikeda, another super chat, interrupting everything as per usual. Thank you so much, Ikeda. You have been so freaking generous tonight. Like, make sure you can pay your bills, dang it. Finally, someone agrees with me about numbers.
Well, I'm a mathematical formalist myself, so there's that. But anyhow.
Calon, what would your answer to that question be?
What would be good? I guess it would be Eisendu, which means literally like good festival.
So would you say good festival then?
Yeah, Eisendu.
Eisendu.
I'm gonna try, but again, with the Eisendu.
Yeah, roughly.
Okay.
We'll have to work on your Sumerian pronunciation.
I mean, it's not going to get better. That's
so massive $20 super chat from Variance the Eclectic. Thank you so much, Variance. Thank you, like huge thanks. Loads up money gun. I think I've got enough quarters for most of you. Happy pagan holidays. Hope the season keeps you well. May the wind keep you fast and the fire warm, the waters forgiving, and the earth fertile. Thank you so much, Variance. Huge thank you. Another $5 super chat from Jael Murray. Much love to all tonight. Thank you so much, Jael. You've been a very good friend in the community. I really appreciate it. And Carpathia, math isn't real. School was a lie. Thank you so much for your guys' super chat.
I mean, she's technically not wrong if you're a mathematical formalist, but it's still useful. So
real analysis would disagree.
No, real analysis agrees. It just deals with real numbers. And we just call them real numbers because that's the arbitrary name we apply to them.
My bachelor's is in math. That's
So, Mero, do you want to talk about kind of how you feel about the holiday season as an atheist? Because I know that some folks feel some type of way about, say, anything other than happy holidays. Some people don't. Some people celebrate as like a secular thing because why rob yourself of an opportunity? And some people don't. So I'd love to hear what your personal feelings are, because obviously you don't speak for all of the atheists, but you're the one who's hanging out with us.
No, actually she does. She speaks for every last atheist.
All the atheists.
Yes.
Okay. It's because Australia is predominantly Christian country. We do have Happy Christmas, but we are also a multicultural country. So, but mainly it's just Merry Christmas. And we don't have that sort of attitude over here of, Christian persecution kind of thing. And like, most people, I haven't heard many minority faiths getting shitty about it, because even though Australia is a predominantly Christian country, with 30% of us are actually nuns, so not necessarily atheists, but nuns as well. But we all just say Merry Christmas
nuns?
to each other.
You have a nunnery over there. Oh,
NONES. Which annoys me, actually. It's like you could have thought of something else, like other or disbelief or something like. No, it's none.
You heard it here. Nirvadia is a nun.
Praise be to his noodliness.
So, to Maddie's question, though, would you prefer Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays, or is there anything that you would prefer?
I don't really care. I probably prefer Merry Christmas because that's the most comfortable for me. Because Happy Holidays just sounds weird for me. But Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever. I mean, have fun. Your cunt is also good.
Don't end up in a dark alley.
Yeah, that too. I mean,
Or do.
Yeah, if you.
That's where you want to be.
Is that a sex reference?
I don't know. You think about it.
It's a virgin chat, just so everyone knows, with virgin wine.
You see, this is a good Christian Minecraft server. So, Maddie, you had mentioned Advent. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
I like Advent. I really like Advent as a season. I wish we celebrated it more. So if you're following the liturgical calendar, right, which is just divides the year into different religious seasons for the Christian calendar, starting like December 1st and going through Christmas Eve is and it ends on Christmas Eve, is the season of Advent, which is supposed to be a very contemplative time. So it's supposed to be a time of like contemplative anticipation, right? It is the idea that...
no wonder evangelicals don't celebrate it.
I know, right? That was
yeah, introspection. That would make things fall apart. Like that literalism would just die.
So there's really only 2 times in the liturgical calendar which are like almost mournful, of like that space for like things have been. So Advent is more of the time for like things have been bad, but hope is coming, right? Is kind of the Advent feeling. Whereas like Lent is a much more like mournful time it's supposed to be a time to like really like, I don't know, I appreciate the space in the liturgical calendar for like sad and angry and like negative feelings, and there's intentional space built for that. And so Lent is kind of that mournful time, whereas Advent is, again, this more contemplative. So I think it's kind of a subtle difference. But yeah, Advent isn't like, it's not super cheery. If you like were to go to, do Orthodox celebrate Advent? I'm pretty sure that Orthodox celebrate Advent, their calendar, this is a conversation we've been having in the side chat, is that the Eastern Orthodox calendar is different. So for Eastern Orthodox tradition, for many Eastern Orthodox comprises of a lot of traditions. But Christmas is on January 7th in the Eastern Orthodox tradition, not December 25th. So it's December 25th in Protestant and Catholic, and then even some Orthodox. But anyway.
So in other words, Christians need to get it together and get one calendar together, just like the pagans, huh?
Well, I mean, I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know if I could say
maybe
that
weirdo.
because I have about 7 different calendars I have to deal with.
I mean, I could technically have up to 9 if I really wanted to, but like I follow at the attic calendar because it's both simple and plentiful.
Yeah. So you're not supposed to have any decorations up until Christmas Eve. You have like the one wreath with 4 candles that are lit on the 4 Sundays of Advent. And those stay lit at night. And then like Christmas Eve is in theory when you would like put up your Christmas tree, and the idea of bringing like light and warmth and hope into your home.
So Carpathia grew up technically kind of partially between the like Greek Orthodox Church and here, like dual citizenship. Says January 7th is Epiphany, the day that the kings got to Jesus.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, and I know that's like, so again, in like so I'm Episcopalian, so in our liturgical calendar, you like Christmas is from Christmas Eve, like at midnight, to Epiphany. That's the Christmas season.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And so that's like joy and celebration and feasting, if you will. Whereas like Advent is more fasting time. And so I don't carve it. Actually, I mean, I carve it that. So you're hitting definitely on like some of my ignorance here of other Orthodox traditions, Sorry. I
was about to say Episcopalianism is kind of about as far away from Orthodox, even the definition of the word, as you could possibly get. Like Episcopalians tend to be pretty chill.
Yeah, that's why I like them.
Yeah, with how progressive you are, I can't imagine you as any other type of Christian. Like, you just would not survive in any other church, except for maybe Unitarian.
Well, you make it in Celtic Christianity. But then again, Celtic Christianity is pagan, so...
You guys met my reading.
Oh, Pelagius.
I know.
So, let's go ahead and go through, again, Marrow, I know that you don't necessarily celebrate, like a special holiday tradition, but like there might be something that you do at home as well. Let's go through with each of us and talk about our favorite tradition within the holiday that we celebrate. For Poseideia, I actually do enjoy when I do decide to do this, baking the fun-shaped cakes. Doing it gluten-free is kind of a pain because, like, for anybody who's ever cooked gluten-free, like, dough is more like a batter than a dough. Also, I'm going to do a quick aside to Shill. There are 44 of you and only 26 likes. Can we fix that? A little bit of help in the algorithm would be super, super helpful, especially because I missed 2 weeks due to the contractors fixing up my house in the emergency that I had. So the algorithm's kind of mad at me right now. If you guys could give it a like and maybe after the video's over, drop a comment, that would be super, super helpful for the algorithm to stop being grumpy. But yeah, for those of you who have never baked gluten-free, when you make dough, we have batter. So you kind of have to use like pastry bags and pastry nozzles and stuff like that if you want to do shaped anything. And you have to do it kind of fast with a rather thick dough if you want to make anything fun-shaped. But I've done that a few times, so that's my favorite tradition. Beefeld, what would you say yours is for the holiday season?
Well, I mean, I enjoy just the regular things that most everybody else around here enjoys. We get a tree, we decorate the tree, we've got stockings. I'm not sure that there's terribly much that I do that's particularly not something that people around here would recognize. I do have a Yule log. More or less, but rather than burning it every year, I have little holes that I drilled into it, and I put candles on top of it. That way I can reuse the same log every year, and it can be pretty and things like that.
So here's a question. What do you think of the Yule log cakes that some people make?
Oh, my grandmother used to make those Yule log cakes. Oh, man. They are so amazingly good, but they're really difficult to actually accomplish, because the jelly roll cake must be a pliable enough cake in order to be able to roll it up.
I will never be able to make one because I'm allergic to the one ingredient that would allow me to.
Yeah. I suppose you might be able to pull it off with some sort of gelatinized thing, but it just wouldn't be the same.
Yeah, but then but if there was gelatin in it, I would die. So
you can do it with meringue if you're really, really careful and good with meringue.
Oh, meringue. So much hatred. Like, there's a love-hate relationship with meringue.
Yes, we know you love it, Allie. Okay.
Yeah, go. Calon, it's your turn. What's your favorite tradition?
Why is it my turn?
Because you're after Beefeld.
Oh, wait, I am. I didn't notice that.
It's short-term memory loss, everyone.
Yeah, totally. Well, I guess really it's sky watching. Meditating on the sky, because the myths sort of, in a way, play out in the sky. Not in necessarily a literal sense, but in the, Venus's descent, Inanna's descent, handing down the May, and also setting out a boat on with biodegradable paper onto the lake. That's another part of it. For me, it's a very contemplative time.
Nervardia, what is your favorite holiday tradition from this time of year? Because I know that you do some unique stuff at home. You send me pictures of all the fun things you make.
What about Science Side Up? Did you? Oh, am I after Science Side Up?
You're next after Calon because you're right underneath. I'm going like left to right, so you go down to the next row. You're next after Calon.
Okay, all right. Sorry. So for me, my personal favorite, and this seems just to be a tradition that I do, is I really enjoy the paycheck that I get after Christmas, because I work every Christmas. I work every Christmas day. I've worked every Christmas day for about 7 or 8 years now, and it's a beautiful number. Okay. Well,
Really?
it's a
quite rare number too, isn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately. But for me, my favorite thing is it's a family recipe that we've had. It's just really easy. We break up milk arrowroot biscuits, put a can of sweetened condensed milk, 3 tablespoons of cocoa, and a cup of desiccated coconut, and you just roll them up into little balls and consume them and die of deliciousness. Really, that's been a family thing. But over here in Australia, Oh yeah. Oh, they're amazing. I love them.
Yeah, if only
but-
any of this actually existed, because you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's some really
Um,
compelling backstory. Like whoever wrote your coding did a really good job with that fiction algorithm.
Thank you.
I know.
And it was hard. It took a lot.
Yeah, you did well there. But
Yeah, I
that's like
could
a
tone down the
family
wildfires a little bit, admittedly, but
that's my family tradition. But basically, we just get together and eat our weight in food, and that's really much. But here in Australia, because it is approximately the surface temperature of the sun, we have this weird kind of national mishmash of traditional like roasts and the really heavy stuff that you would normally eat during winter. But we also mix it up with like fruit salads and smoked salmon and like all of the light and salads and things like that. So we're like, we've made our own traditional, like we've made songs that are Southern Hemisphere based, like Frosty the Yobo.
What is a yobo?
It's like a redneck.
what?
Frosty the Yobo.
Oh,
yeah, basically.
Got it.
And it like we've made our own parodies because it's really, really hot, and like there's a lot of Christmas carols that have an Australian slant to it here. It's really weird because it is this mix of weird kind of like cold weather food while we're sweating out of every orifice on our body. So in July, we actually some people celebrate Christmas in July because that's our winter. So yeah, it's really interesting. I really like that weird kind of dynamic of traditional Christian Northern Hemisphere.
I mean, it's kind of Eurocentric, isn't it?
It is incredibly Eurocentric. It is incredibly like we don't have palm trees native to here. Like that we like
stares vaguely out her window at like 90% of all the trees being evergreens.
Yeah, we have it. So I think some Australian families use eucalyptuses because they're fast-growing trees and they've got this beautiful scent. Yeah, a lot of people actually have, unfortunately, a Christmas tradition of having their houses burnt down because this is our bushfire season. So there's often a lot of bushfires around this time of year. I'm not sure about right now. There's a couple, but nothing spectacular. Not like it was last year, where the whole country was on fire from basically, July. So yeah, 2 Christmases in a year.
Australia is on fire.
Yeah,
we're always on fire, but I don't think it's so bad now because we're in a La Nina cycle. So we're going to end up probably having flooding.
So this is something that originally, before Jen and I decided to cancel the coalition for a couple of weeks until January, following the holiday season because it was hectic, we were originally going to talk a little bit about how we each handled kind of differences of belief when it comes to holidays and such, and kind of how to negotiate that during this time of year. And I'm curious what each of you sort of does for that and how each of you feels about that. Like, for me, I'm not going to be seeing family this year. Normally I go see my in-laws, but they have newborns, and even though Steve and I were not necessarily immune per se, but we did have it, and our antibodies are most likely still active. As I told you, Marrow, one of my friends got put in the hospital with it, and I had seen her the day before she developed symptoms for hanging out with her for 4 or 5 hours. It was an enclosed space at her place, and I was wearing a mask, but it was like she owns a coffee shop, and so I had to like take it off periodically to drink my drink, which reduces efficacy, etc. We both feel like if I was not immune, I probably would have developed symptoms from just how long we were in this enclosed space together, especially because with microdroplets, she takes her mask off when customers are not around, when nobody's around to transfer it, even though there's kind of stuff about that and how long things hover in the air. So chances are I probably would have caught it if I could. But my in-laws have a newborn in the house, and my sister-in-law is pregnant again. So we don't want to put either of them at risk, or my elderly in-laws, so we're not seeing them this year. But normally, they're kind of, funnily enough, one of them is atheistic, the other one's a fallen Christian, and by that I mean they're a Christian that basically celebrates the holidays and talks the talk but doesn't go to church. So, armchair Christian, basically. So we usually, there's a lot of like the typical holiday stuff. We usually don't have to deal with navigating that space all that much because they're just kind of accepting that my house is like unabashedly pagan. Like, they both came to our wedding, and we had a Unitarian Universalist friend of mine who was ordained do the wedding as a full-blown, like at the time I was more on the Wiccan side, but like Wiccan-ish wedding when we got together, and they just were cool with it. So I'm curious how you guys, like, if you've ever had to deal with that with family, how you navigate that space. Bethel, do you want to start?
Well, I mean, we have the great benefit of the solstice being on the 21st, and then Christmas being on the 25th. So, like, they're two completely different things. There's not even a conflict for me. I go from one. And then we go and do Christmas somewhere else. And hey, who's going to turn down an extra party and more gifts? And more food? Like, goodness gracious, I'm not going to say no to that.
So, Calon, how do you handle that?
By petting my snake. I mean, what?
So you are a snake petting another snake that you own. This is very confusing.
This is very meta.
Yeah, don't think about it too
I
much.
just assumed it was a euphemism.
What? Why are you staring at the lamp, Snakey? Why? No. It's warm enough, right? Okay, cool. Anyhow, how do I? I mean, I just compartmentalize. Really, that's it.
Mara, what about you?
Well, my dad is atheist. My mum's an armchair Christian as well. So we Christmas for us as a family is not centered around worshipping. It's more centered around worshipping food, and getting gifts. And stuff. Like, it's very secular. Like,
in other words, like the war on Christmas has already been won by your side in Australia.
Well, at least for my family. At least for my family. Like this week. On Friday, I've got a shift where I'm going to take someone to Christmas celebrations at their church. I work with people with a disability, by the way, everyone. So, yeah, that's. But in regards, like we might sing some Christmas carols. We probably put the Santa hat on, but there's, if you walked into our Christmas celebrations as a pagan, you would not feel like you're having Christianity shoved down your throat. You'd probably just have food shoved down your throat instead, which, I prefer that.
Sign me up.
Do you have to deal with that whole war on Christmas BS down there, or is your media a little more sane than ours?
Australian media.
It's more sane. We are actually, this is really cool. In our ex-PM, Kevin Rudd, has asked for a royal commission onto looking into
that's ex-prime minister, for those of you who don't know.
Yeah. He's asked for a petition, and a very successful petition, looking into the dominance of the Murdoch media in Australia, because in my state, outside of the Australian Broadcasting Corporation or the ABC, most of the mainstream media, like all of the mainstream media, is Murdoch owned. So
that's scary.
Yeah, I know. It's very, very scary. At least in my state. I'm not sure about the other states as well. I know Sydney Morning Herald isn't owned by Murdoch, but so the media here is going to have a big shake-up if this Royal Commission actually comes up with anything. So, but I'm not hearing too much about the war on Christmas and stuff like that, because we don't really care. We're quite laid back. We've got we do have those dickheads probably screaming about the war on Christmas but they're just tiny little voices that that no one really listens to anyway. So
people are too focused on the koalas.
well, yeah, like as I was saying, Christmas in Australia is a lot more secular than it would be in America, from what I can tell. Like, we'll have like the stars and the occasional cross and stuff like that, but a lot of it is mainly just looking at pretty blinking lights. It's a lot more secular and a lot more consumerism than what it would have been in the past. So.
Heracles asks, could the Murdoch media be broken up with this Royal Commission?
I think that's one of the hopes. At least we're looking into the impact that the Murdoch media has on Australia, because the Murdoch media is very, very powerful, and a lot of people read, and there's a lot of things that, like, they are openly partisan against the Labor Party, and the Murdoch media will trash anything that has got anything to do with Labor, which is not the Liberal Party, which is the Liberal Party, but the Liberal Party is the Conservative Party. We had to swap. So, but the Labor, for example, during COVID-19 outbreak in Victoria, the Premier is a Labor leader, and he got shat all over by the Murdoch media. However, in New South Wales, there was actually a corruption thing going on with the Premier, and the Murdoch media was just praising her. But if the same thing had happened to a Labor person, they would be the scum of the earth. Now that there's an outbreak in Sydney for COVID-19, I think there's been 85 people I think have been diagnosed from an outbreak. The Murdoch media is like being really, really, nice to this person, to Sydney, which is in New South Wales. But in Victoria, they've had one new case that was brought in from Sydney, and that's considered an outbreak. Like, meanwhile, the Sydney is a cluster. So it is very partisan. Hopefully the Murdoch media will be broken up about this. There has been like, last time I checked, there was over 500,000 signatures put on this petition, and that was about a month ago. There's probably more. So yeah, there's a lot of support to have investigations around how the monopoly from the Murdoch media is in Australia. That was a bit off topic, but I think that's really good that this is happening.
You just made me want to move to Australia.
Hey, it's a worthwhile tangent. We're learning things about parts of the world that, half of the audience for YouTube doesn't think exists. So maybe hearing about the geopolitical struggles there might cause people to reconsider some of the problems here, right? Like, the Murdoch media controls a lot around here too, though. They lost some of their power when Fox got eaten by the mouse. The mouse is getting scarier now too. So Maddie,
Disney.
Oh.
So Maddie, do you want to talk about your favorite traditions? Because you were talking a little bit about Advent. And if you want to chime in, I guess the next question after this, and I'll let you start it because I've been having Beafeld start, and Beafeld can go after. What do you think about the whole war on Christmas stuff? But talk about your favorite traditions first, because since we're on that tangent, we might as well sit there.
My favorite part of Christmas is always, so I have a huge, absurd extended family, and Christmas is like the one time of year we all get together. Obviously that's not happening this year. We're going to do some kind of virtual something. For me, that's always been my favorite part of Christmas. Is probably, I think, what everybody else has really hit on, of the notes of like family eating an absurd amount of food. My aunt always makes her fudge, and it's so good, and I don't know how she does it because I have the recipe and it's not the same. And I mean, I personally enjoy midnight mass, right? But so on the religious side, So I like that ending of that contemplative season of Advent with the like late evening Christmas Eve service. Not doing that this year because humans. But
yeah, you're in the high risk category too, aren't you?
I got a couple things.
Yeah, you're in the on a scale of 1 to my ass is planted in my chair. That's where I am.
Yeah, I'm a little above that, but I just found out I get to have surgery like 10 days from now, so I'm fine. It's just a thing. It's not going to be a big deal. I'm mostly just annoyed because I have to fit it in between science conferences. Anyway.
Guys, like, this is a new meme for Maddie. Maddie's like, surgery is annoying because science conferences, just saying. Maddie is a badass. Anyway, so what is your opinion on the war on Christmas narrative?
Dude, if I'm being completely honest, let me just be completely fucking honest here with y'all. I think the people who have done the most to degrade the religious significance of Christmas are probably evangelical Christians. Also,
that's a hot take.
Fun fact, team: Christmas isn't the most holy day of our most holy day is Easter, right? Christmas is pretty. It's like top 5, you know, but it's not like if you're looking at like the days with religious significance. And I mean, because I grew up in an evangelical church, non-denominational kind of thing, and found Episcopalianism as an adult, right? That was sort of as I was questioning my faith. That's where I landed. We, like, this is the point, the degree to which Christmas was secularized within that evangelical tradition is that if Christmas fell on a Sunday, we would cancel church. So that you would be with your family, right? And so, like, that's actually one of the reasons I like midnight mass, right? Is because it brings back the religious significance to the holiday. Which, again, the religious significance that for me is important, you know? So, like...
yeah, for everybody who's late to the stream and has not been hanging out here this whole time, Maddie does not give a flying fuck if you convert or not.
I don't. It's not my jam. So I do think that, like, you know, family and time with family and things like that is one of the most valuable, like, that's one of the things I do value the most about the season. But like, I really do think that the crowd that is screaming the loudest about like war on Christmas has done the most to deride the religious connotation when it made it about like Santa, not like, yeah, that's my hot take.
I would agree with you on that one. I think as soon as you start that Christian persecution complex, autofellatio, Christian persecution and also autofellatio, you dilute the story behind it, behind something. Like probably an equivalent would be in Australia, where a lot of people are starting to push Australia Day to move from the 26th of January to a different day. We haven't figured out, because that 26th of January is when Captain Cook, well, basically an invasion. That's when the Europeans invaded Australia. And the people who are going, you know, you can't do that, rah, 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 like, and making it all about them and losing Australia Day is kind of it rather than them just going, oh yeah, that's fair, let's move Australia to like the 27th of January. They're like, their insistence that it's a persecution on them and on the tradition actually makes it dilutes the importance of Australia Day. If that makes sense. Yeah. Like, yeah, as soon as you start crying persecution, and especially being a person who's in power, as soon as you cry persecution, you've lost the argument if you are in power, and that's your take. It's your hot take. So
absolutely. And I just wanted to comment about that comment that you had brought up. One of the things that does really drive me nuts is how Christmas is turned into like second Easter, right? This is the day we have to celebrate Jesus was born, but don't forget he also died for your sins. Like, that's a different holiday. We have different days for that. Like, I mean,
to be fair, let's face it, that's like every sermon for evangelical Christians. Like, Jesus died for your sins and you should feel bad for that. And also, he died for your sins and hell, I guess, simultaneously came into existence because it didn't exist in Judaism. I don't understand why. Like, did God send his son down supposedly? Did Yahweh send his son down just to so he could create this burning pit? Like, how does this timeline work exactly?
Right. And so, again, to bring things back to so it's not that it's like what I found in the Episcopal Church that I found lacking, and was, I really do like the liturgical calendar of having, days of the year marked out. And Christmas is about hope, right? That's what is supposed to be celebrated with the idea of the birth of the Messiah, right? This is hope for the world, and it's celebrated in, not when Jesus was actually born, but in this time of the year for, this is the birth of the Messiah is the symbol of hope in our religious context. And so we're going to celebrate that for us in this near solstice, near the darkest day of the year. And so that's the time when people need hope. So we have a holiday which specifically recognizes, that hope for the future.
So, John, I'm going to put a pin in your question really quick because I want the other two folks in the chat who have been waiting so patiently to speak to be able to speak.
Yeah.
They have felt. What do you think about the war on Christmas narrative, considering we dirty pagans and heretical Christian and atheists, we are apparently the front lines for this war, aren't we? So, what do you think about the war on Christmas?
To be perfectly honest, I don't see that there is terribly much of war on Christmas. If anything, though, it's essentially that. So I will agree with the science side up that what we see being practiced as Christian Christmas is not what Christmas is about, and the traditions which are being put forth for Christmas are not what Christmas is about. Essentially, you have a whole bunch of evangelical Christians who are getting sniffy about how people are not celebrating Yule enough. And so I'm perfectly fine with this. Yes, push the Yule.
Didn't Santa have something to do with one of the Yuletide traditions? I know that the Wiccans are always the Oak King and the Holly King, but I know nothing about whether or not there's any historical accuracy to anything, because press X to doubt anything you read in a Llewellyn book, so I'm curious what you think about that.
Well, I mean, there is a great similarity between Santa Claus as what we think of him being, and then a Woden, an Odin sort of figure. The idea of a Yulnir, a Yule spirit, which was also a name of Odin.
The Christmas spirit.
Yeah, the Christmas spirit is a god. So I have nothing wrong with Santa. I fucking love Santa. The Santa to me, you're telling these children that there's this secret man that watches them while they sleep and stuff. Yeah, that's a god. All right, you're describing a god. You're describing one of my gods precisely. And so it's yeah, go ahead and push Santa all you want. All that's going to happen is that they're going to figure out it's Yule eventually.
That what happens is more pagans just grow up out of the ground at that point.
And the great thing is that, you know, all of those holidays, I don't lose a single one. I don't lose a single holiday. They're all my holidays. You know, I get Easter, and it's still Easter. I get Yule, and it's still Yule. It's the exact same thing. I still get eggs and rabbits. I still get Christmas trees and Yule logs and piggy pudding and whatever else.
I mean, I don't get feasting and rampant boning in the streets, so I don't get Poseideia.
Well, you can have.
Sucks.
You can have your own Poseideia, though. Like, I think you can have rampant boning. Just,
It's preferably just.
But it's not
don't
in
do
the
it
streets,
outside.
okay? Like, it's not
Oh,
in
it's
the
like-
streets.
I
So-
don't know how to help you with that one.
Essentially, I do find the idea of a war on Christmas ridiculous because they're essentially forming battle lines not around Christmas but around Yule, and I think that that's sort of ridiculous because if you were going to really form a Christmas about being Christmas, then they need to rethink what Christmas is about.
Calon, do you have any commentary on the war on Christmas? Is Calon here?
Calon is muted.
Calon, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
There you go.
So what do you think about the whole war on Christmas idea?
I mean, most of my opinions are going to align with Beofeld since I'm also a heathen. But also,
Calon is a dirty syncretic who syncretizes many things.
I know, I'm awful. I'm a horrible human. Okay, anyhow. If I'm talking from my Sumerian perspective, it's funny. That's all I can say because generally, according to my calendar, usually they're free holidays during like every part of the months. Usually, like I usually put them on the 7th and like the 15th and the 21st of the month, which again, they're also a lot more geared towards like spring and whatnot, which is when you would actually harvest stuff in Mesopotamia. So
Yeah, you find something similar in Hellenic stuff. We have a lot of harvest festivals. Like there's an entire series of harvest festivals, but they're significantly less like winter festivals, apart from the fact that our New Year lasts an entire month.
yeah, it's called the in Sumerian the month itself is called harvest. It's called Shikinku, and yeah, and New Year's is called Zagma, which is basically the bordering day. For the year.
Quick self promo, by the way. We're getting pretty close to the New Year. I did a video on the series of festivals that leads up to the Athenian New Year. You can find it under the Common Hellenism playlist at the front of my channel when you guys are done watching the show. It's one of my not as well viewed videos. I would love to get more people kind of interested in that because I talk about all of the sheer number of festivals that led up to the Athenian New Year. So this is actually kind of hilarious by Heracles, and I just had to draw attention to it because it made me chuckle. The war on Christmas is an offensive war by Christmas on Thanksgiving and Halloween, as Christmas tries to conquer more of the year for its holiday. This is not wrong.
Exactly.
You're not wrong, but you didn't need to say it.
But yeah, during this month it's the Ezamanana, at least as I celebrate it, because I tend to work from Uruk, which Uruk, for those who don't know, is basically the oldest of the currently known city-states that goes back to like 4,000, 5,000 BCE. There are other celebrations in other areas, like I think in Nippur it's Ezamach, which is a great feast. And so yeah, you have various little... I basically have, if I wanted to, I could probably make most of the year, pretty much every day, a holiday. So. Oh,
hey, Chrissy. Chrissy, who has helped me on many, many videos and gets shout out on the channel, even though she hasn't had a channel in a while, is hanging out in our chat. Ikeda, another $5 super chat. Make sure you can pay your bills, good sir. This year, due to COVID, Poseideia will be celebrated on Pornhub.
Actually, it won't be because they deleted over how many of their percentage of their videos?
Pretty much anything that can't, like anything that's like was an illegal re-upload of another like company's
actually,
content.
anything that wasn't verified. That's what it was. Yeah, I remember. Which is a good thing, by the way.
Mhm.
Very good thing because it gets rid of child porn.
I might actually head because it is getting kind of late. I haven't had lunch, and my boyfriend is here, and I'm ignoring him.
I was about to actually suggest that we do a quick teaser for your video if you've got just a moment more. Since we were talking about the war on Christmas, you're doing a video very soon on the Christian persecution complex, and I was going to actually ask everybody's opinion about that, because I know that at least Beafeld and I are extremely historically minded and have both studied a little bit of like where that comes from, and also the fact that many Roman writers also said that they were lying through their teeth about it. So do you want to talk a little bit about that before you head off and like shill your channel a bit?
I will. Okay, so
Tim Matthews says hi, Notcha, by the way.
I'll let Notcha know. Notcha, Tim Matthews says hello. He says hello back. Okay, so basically I've called it Christian persecution autofellatio complex. So
you've gotten Beafeld giggling every time you've said that. I told you it was brilliant when you came up with it. You were like, "Is this too rude?" And I'm like, "Nervardia, it's hilarious."
It's so accurate. That's what it is. It's accurate. I'm sorry, Maddie, but it's kind of true.
Okay, Maddie criticizes Christians right alongside of us. Again, there's a reason that this woman was the very first Christian we ever, and only Christian we ever had on the bridge before it became the coalition.
Nice.
I didn't know I was still the only one. Okay.
We have not had another Christian who wanted to come on or felt like very strongly about allyship.
Just a special little snowflake over here.
You are the resident Christian heretic in our server. And a content creator and one of my close friends in the community to boot. So you get all of the snowflake specials. You get gold stars all along your wall. You just can't see them because, COVID.
I think my dog is misbehaving. I'll be right back.
Kaleidoscope. I'm sorry. Kaleidoscope. I'm not even sure what autofellatio is, but it's brilliant. Autofellatio. Well, fellatio means giving someone a blowjob. So autofellatio is giving yourself a blowjob. So anyway, so I wanted to do a video on actual genuine Christian persecution, like state-sanctioned or society-sanctioned persecution, and comparing it to the persecution that Christians experience in Western countries like Australia and the US, and just tell them to shut the fuck up. Basically, that's basically the idea. And I've asked Aliyaka to come on and maybe also talk a little bit about the history of it, because that's her jam. My jam is more modern jam. Her jam is more ancient jam.
Yeah, and actually, I feel Beafeld, like, you know a little bit about that stuff too, because you and I geeked out about that a while back, like when we first met.
Oh yeah.
Chris, do you want to talk a little bit about like how that's kind of been a narrative that's not entirely true for most of Christian history?
Wait, all right, yeah, I can speak a little bit to it.
Because there was some that happened, but not like there was also some that was kind of sought out.
Yeah. So essentially, what we see in the Roman Empire is that they were remarkably religiously tolerant. They were polytheists. They were very accepting. They didn't particularly like monotheism. They didn't like Judaism, but they accepted it because of its antiquity. When Christianity differentiated itself.
One could argue almost more so than the Greeks. So, like in Athens, you could get like put in jail or executed for like anhosion for impiety.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind that was pretty rare, and you had to fuck up in other ways in order to get charged with that. But like you could.
Yeah. Well, the Romans they respected antiquity. They respected people's ancestral beliefs, and it's one of the really redeeming qualities for them that they did that. However,
I mean, they respected them so much they folded them into their religion.
Yeah. Well, not in the case with Judaism, though. Well, I guess you could
Well, I mean,
make
that's
a
what
case
happened.
for it,
That's
but-
how Christianity came to be.
But yeah, then you have Christianity enter the scene, and it's new. And so the Romans didn't feel the need to respect it, especially when it became obvious that it wasn't Judaism. Like it puttered along for a little while because they accepted it because they thought it was Judaism, until the Christians differentiated themselves and said, no, we're not Jews, we're something else. And then the Romans were like, you're something else? And then the Christians were like, yes, we're something else. And then the Romans were like, that's not good. We don't want you to be something else.
No cults for you.
There was some repercussions with that, but a lot of the martyrdom that was done was self-inflicted. So, like, essentially, the Romans had a cult of state, and so long as you paid at least some recognition to the cult of state, then you could go on about your merry business and do whatever you wanted. But not only did they not do such in secret, they publicly did it, and with great passion, because in a sense, martyrdom was a shortcut to heaven, and that became.
It also kind of helped
thing.
you avoid judgment a little bit, because like there was supposed to be a massive judgment, but if you martyred yourself, there was almost this idea that like your sins were abolished, that was kind of unwritten.
Yeah. And so the Christian persecution complex essentially is rooted in this North African Christian martyrdom that was just sort of like this groundswell that happened there, and it never got over that, even to the point in which it still was part of their thing. For forever. It has never progressed beyond that point because it's so foundational to the ideology of what Christianity would become.
Well, and part of that was also because of the Apocrypha too, right? Like there was a lot of martyrs that were literate because they were rich that got tossed into jail cells, and they didn't get executed. Most Christians were not executed via gladiatorial stuff. There's this whole narrative around like this slow murder. Most people weren't executed that way. Like they weren't.
But the few that did got nice books about it.
But a lot of them were actually given such special privileges. They were able to write entire books about their martyrdom while they were being held in jail. Like the Revelation of Porphyria, I believe was her name, is one of those.
But yeah, so they developed from that, but they stopped being persecuted. Fairly well on there with the reforms that were being put in place after Diocletian, and then you have Constantine, and then you have the conversion of Constantine, which completely rewrote what it was to be a Roman and an emperor, and then it was in vogue. And so
that conversion's part of the reason Platonism completely took over the faith, because like during this era, Stoicism was the civic quote unquote religion, the civic philosophy, and Platonism was like the theological one. So he kind of folded a lot more of those ideas into Paul's work even than was already there, because Paul references a lot of Platonist shit. Like the Platonism in the New Testament is more Greek than it is Jewish. I will just say this flat out.
it is.
Mhm.
It is.
Like the more you study, it even uses like Tartaros and Thanatos and other Greek fucking god names in Revelation. Like you can't get out of that. Like the fact that people read translations is the part of the reason why they don't realize just how freaking Greek the New Testament is.
Yeah, the about the only non-Greek part of it is like the Book of Luke. because the book of Luke is a historical book, not necessarily going to get into terribly much else. But the fact is that you get a whole bunch of the other ones that are not, as it were.
Mark is probably the least supernatural out of all of them.
Mhm.
So, Calon, from a sociological point of view, what kind of advantages do you think that evangelicals get from that persecution complex?
Sociologically?
Mm-hmm. Like, do you think, like, group cohesion, or like, do you think there's psychological benefits? Like, what kind of benefits do you think Christians get from being the majority and pretending they're not?
I guess really it's the same. It's kind of like how fascists will say, like, there always needs to be an enemy.
Yes.
If there's not an enemy, things fall apart and people start fighting each other. Maybe that's why we have so many denominations of Christianity. Anyhow,
Perpetua, thank you, Carbuncle. The martyrdom of Perpetua. That's the person I was thinking of.
Mm.
Oh, hey, Godless Cranium, welcome. This panel looks like trouble.
We are. It is.
I'm your nightmare cranium. You know this. I'm your absolute nightmare. I'm the worst in Narvadia.
No, wait. There's the nightmare. There we go.
Hey.
My
Hey.
Exterminate.
This panel is a pile of geeks. All right, Mero, I wanted to give a quick preview and kind of get that discussion going a little bit. You are going to have that video out fairly soon. I will try to get your channel link in the description below, but if you guys are interested, open up a new tab on your browser really quick. Her channel name is spelled exactly the same way as her name tag. Go check her out. She's going to be helping me out on my upcoming video where I'm going to be talking about COVID stuff, my experience with COVID, and why I think setting up a whole bunch of pagan gatherings all over the country is a really bad idea. She's going to be helping me out talking about how quickly these can become super spreader events and how stupid people are for thinking masks don't do anything. So, like, she's an excellent science communicator. I actually shouted her out in one of my other videos about when I did the How to Research History. She did a similar video far before I did on how to pick a scientific journal that I think is really, really good. And a lot of her points can actually apply to picking historical journals as well. So please go check her stuff out. She is woefully undersubscribed. Even though she's bigger than me, she is still woefully undersubscribed and woefully under-engaged for her subscriber count. So I know you guys are super active and you guys show up for a lot of my stuff. Please, please, please go do the same. She's well worth checking out. And she also called out her own community for shitty behavior recently. You did. I helped you out with the How to Not Be a New Atheist video, and that was that was a trip, and you got some backlash for it too.
Not a lot. I was expecting a lot more, but I got some troll comments from Christians like, "Oh, reasons why atheists are like want to be atheists," and it's like, we've already talked about this shit.
But most importantly, overall, Narvadia has snakes.
2 of them.
I have 2.
Exactly. That's the real reason you should do all that stuff.
You even put those snakes on camera sometimes.
Yeah. Lilith, my older one, my first one, she's been on a couple of times. Thyla, the younger one, she's only been on once, just so I can tell everyone. And Thyla probably should have an update. She's much bigger now.
She deserves her own channel, if we're honest.
They both do.
Well, you had a fat snake that you needed to play more with, and now that snake is getting better.
Yeah. Well, Lilith did gain a lot of weight, and so I was able to get it down. But Lilith has the amazing ability to not understand that my hand is not edible. Her philosophy in life is basically anything that enters my tank while I'm in it is edible. It's not.
Wait, I'm confused. Is there another philosophy in life?
It's good point. Anyway, so for me to get her out of her tank, I actually have to pick up the snake hook, sort of distract her while she's trying to eat the bloody snake hook while I grab her from somewhere else. As soon as I grab her, she's like, "Oh, it's time to be played with." But before then, she's like, "Food." It's just like, I've had you for 2 years. You should know this by now. Thyla, on the other hand, figured it out within a couple of months. Lilith is not the brightest spark in the universe, but I still love her deeply.
All right. Well, thank you so much for hanging with us, Mero. I probably shouldn't keep you from Nacha for too much longer, but thank you again for hanging out, guys. Please go check out Nervardia's channel, and please check out some of the videos that I recommended. She's been a wonderful, wonderful friend to me and the channel since before I actually started my solo work. And we've worked together on the majority of the scripts that you've put out, basically, since I started this channel, because I've been helping out with editing stuff, which you talk about enough on Twitter for me to be like, I can claim credit.
Yeah, we became quite good friends after the John Richards interview in March. That's when that was the first one you helped me on. So
yeah, because you were like, how can I handle this crap? You're all about the allyship thing. How do I do this? And we wrote that script together. We went through paragraph by paragraph and wrote that script together.
Yeah, I probably should have given you a lot more credit for that. Now that I think back on it.
I don't care. It was your script and I was your friend and I was happy to help, and I still am your friend and I'm still happy to help.
And everybody, if you need a script editor, Ali Kai is the one to go to.
Yeah, she'll send me the scripts and just be like, wordify this, and I'll clean it up, and she'll be like, this is so much more concise.
Yeah. I'm like, I can speak it now.
Your filler words, man. To be fair, yeah, fuck you, I'm paying you. That is, you will literally put that in script sometimes to see if I'm actually paying attention. And one time I left it in there to troll you back, and you're like, you didn't see it? And I'm like, yes, I did. I just left it there so you would think I didn't. Well, thank you again. And thank you for being such a wonderful ally. Have a good night. Or I guess afternoon.
And to everyone, have a happy insert appropriate word here to you
holiday.
All.
Happy holidays.
Happy everything.
Happy holidays.
Lots of love. Try not to go into too much of a food coma, but a little bit of a food coma is perfectly fine. All right. Love you all. Bye.
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 So we are getting pretty close to when I usually start wrapping up scripts. Is there anything that we haven't talked about yet tonight that you guys wanted to cover a little bit regarding kind of the holidays, and especially this year with COVID and everything, how everybody's handling stuff?
Ali, I think one question that we need to ask is, do you have Thor?
Thor is in his cage currently, and also I do not have the rats out when I'm streaming.
You should.
Well, of course you would think that. You would want to hunt them, wouldn't you?
Look, it's nothing personal.
So Beafeld or Maddie, do you guys have any anything that you would like to kind of cover regarding the holidays, or something you think that the panel might have some fun discussing a little bit before we close out?
I thought it was. I was actually considering something while the panel was going on, that the giving to Santa is excruciatingly similar to sacred reciprocity.
Mm-hmm.
And so we give out these cakes to this Santa figure who has godlike omniscience, and
or just a very sophisticated network of spies that we're unaware of.
Yeah. Or it could be the God presence thing that you and I were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be the Alvar that he has.
That's always true too.
Okay, let's face it though. We all know that the truth is it's the tech gremlins.
Oh, Amazon.
Amazon is actually run by elves.
So you have this individual which has godlike omniscience, and you petition the individual. You tell them what you want by writing them a letter, and you offer up an offering, and then you receive that which you asked for.
Well, and you know what's interesting is it's actually very similar to the structure of Greek prayer, because a lot of those letters come with arguments at the beginning. I've been very good this year. I've done all these things, and here are the things that I want.
And so you could actually make a fairly logical model for showing how the format of a pagan prayer simply by discussing Santa Claus.
Tim, I know you came in a little bit later, but we did actually talk about the Santa-Odin connection earlier.
I could just imagine, though, if it were done in like a Sumerian way, in which case the kid would have to be crying and crying and crying, begging that they get their gifts instead. No, I'm kidding.
Well, and also lots and lots of praise epithets. You forgot the praise epithets, the very long list.
Those are implied because you don't do lamentations without the praise of epithets. If you do, you just make the god angry, and then now your entire city's going to be erased from the face of the earth.
From a Sumerian perspective, I saw Mommy kissing Santa Claus might have an entirely different perspective.
It does. I'm not going to go into that perspective. But
hey, like Sumerian is the only tradition that I know of. Again, there probably are others, but it's the only one where I know of where god spousing might be legit.
It is legit. Not might be. It is.
Well, anything we do might be legit. We have no idea. We have AUPG and SPG and SPG with dead people.
Allie, we have the Sumerians themselves writing about this.
Okay, but like I said, VPG is SPG with dead people. We don't know if anything we do is legit, not even if it's VPG.
I mean, yeah, but the sentence God spousing was a thing in Sumeria is a thing. So, no.
So, Maddie, what do you think? Mm-hmm. Do you have kind of a concept of reciprocity within Episcopalian stuff, or is that kind of more of a pagan thing?
It's really more of a pagan thing. I don't have a real concept of reciprocity, and I think maybe we're getting into, I guess, the nature of prayer. Which might be a different stream.
I mean, we could have that stream someday. I've been thinking about starting to do more solo Saturday streams, or Saturday streams with just like one individual guest outside of the monthly wine rants I do with Calon. Which the next one is probably going to be, because Ikeda decided in all of his, wonderfulness to pick me up the first volume of the Pre-Socratics from Leb. We're going to be talking about the Pre-Socratics in the next wine rant.
That's right. Everything is made of water. Right here.
So we had 2 questions from the chat that we could cover before we wrap up the stream and do our shilling.
Yeah.
So how should an individual that doesn't belong to any particular traditions yet believes in a god/many gods on a philosophical grounds like deists or philosophical theists approach the holidays? I mean, the answer from my end would be pick whichever holiday you most align with, or, celebrate the traditions of the mainstream if it doesn't offend you. Either way would work. That's kind of what a lot of us do.
I mean, I'm a dirty syncretic, so.
Yeah, Calon's just whatever goes. You could celebrate all of them or none of them is the answer. Whatever I think would be the closest to what aligns with you, personally. If you really like the craziness of Poseideia or Saturnalia, or the, reservedness of Advent, or the sort of warm feasting family affair that is Yuletide, any of those.
And if you also just want to leave out the Sumerians there, but, nothing.
I don't know enough about the tradition to comment on what specifically the shining value of that particular holiday is. So do you want to talk about it?
I mean, there is a celebration of civilization.
Well, okay, yeah, or celebrating the birth of civilization. So if depending on which one of those things rings closest to you, or which one appeals most to you, or even if some aspects of all of them do, as somebody who is technically eclectic, if you're not part of a particular tradition, you could pick any of those things and celebrate them traditionally, or create your own traditions. There's no reason why you couldn't. All of us probably have personal traditions that we do that are outside of what's, within our traditions, because that's the nature of faith. That's the nature of practice. That's the nature of living and growing in a relationship with whatever entity you end up in a relationship with. What do you guys think? Would you guys agree with me there, or?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say do whatever the hell you want. What to do?
Just have fun.
Yeah.
More holidays, more food.
Yeah.
As long as you're not harming yourself or others, there's no reason not to find the thing that you feel aligns best with you.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Matthews asks, would tithing count as Christian reciprocity?
No.
No, I don't think
Of course.
so.
Can I actually touch on this?
Yeah.
I have this thing which is a rather controversial take for the heathen community, but when I want to sort of describe do des, sacred giving, sacred reciprocity,
Yeah.
the place that I actually point people towards, the most concise place for a thorough understanding of it is actually found in the book of Leviticus. So the deity spells out exactly what he wants, exactly how to do it, and exactly what he will give to the Jews if they fulfill their end of the deal.
Yeah, that's pretty concise.
Yeah.
And you look like you've got a comment on the tip of your tongue there, Maddie.
Well, I was gonna say, if I was gonna, because that is that process described in Leviticus is not tithing. That's a different thing.
No, definitely
right.
not.
So just to
It's
point that
burnt offerings of
Right.
Of animal sacrifices.
Yeah. And so on the note of tithing, tithing, at least as I understand it and as it was sort of taught to me, is about humans taking care of the other humans in their community. It is I give of my excess now to care for those who do not have or do not have excess, and if I find myself in need at some point, right, then I have the trust that my community will take care of me. So tithing, there's a tithing to me has always, it's actually less to do with like a gift to God and more of a gift to your community.
Ideally.
I don't know exactly. Ideally, it's often abused, and that's also a whole other conversation. So that's why I see it as a very different practice than I don't know. I think it is like a fulfilling of like a commandment or of a desire of a deity, like that. Like I think there's part of my job as a Christian, as a person of faith, is to care for others, but it's not a direct gift to a deity like my understanding of the reciprocity. But I don't have a deep understanding of that. But that's kind of why I view tithing as something different.
It's technically impossible to form a within the confines of how the reciprocity is set forth.
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible to form a do-des relationship with the Yahweh character, the Yahweh God, simply because it's spelled out that it must take place at the temple in Jerusalem. That is the only sanctified place where gifts are given to Yahweh, and no temple there exists, and it hasn't since the Romans destroyed it. And so no offerings can take place that would take place there. And so gifts cannot be given.
Yeah, and I think you and I could have a very long, fun conversation about this, which I would very much enjoy having at some point.
Well, I'd argue that
Yeah.
even without that, a reciprocal relationship with at the very least, the mainstream Christian conceptualization of Yahweh is impossible because the sacrifice of Jesus was supposed to have replaced any sort of reciprocal relationship with a top-down hierarchy, with Yahweh as patriarchal ruler, and everybody else must follow the commandments because, again, as we mentioned before, I cracked the joke that, hey, this burning pit materialized at about the same time, apparently, even though the book never mentions it. Like that happened. So if you don't do those things, like after you've been washed clean in, the baptismal waters and such, then, well, you're boned. There's no way you can get out of that. There's no reciprocity because there can't be. That was put an end to.
Right. And yeah, so I was actually going to say, the point I was going to get at was that, so I think there's an interesting tradition because, Yahweh is the deity of both Christianity and Judaism, and the burnt offerings at the temple is explicitly not a part of Christianity and explicitly a part of Judaism. And I think that's a very interesting distinction of it's one deity in two religions, and how do you relate to that and use that? I don't know. Is that even a thing that makes sense? I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, one deity, two religions, like Religio Romana and Hellenism do share some deities, and yet they are very different religions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you could argue that they're not, but you'd be wrong. Ikeda says, "Thank you again, Ikeda. You get you get the gold star for somebody who has donated the absolute most tonight. Thank you so freaking much. You have been so generous." $5 super chat. My Christian God was running a protection racket.
I mean, it was.
I can see that. I can definitely see how you get there.
Well, it looks like Ikeda was part of a cult. I was Assembly of God. Tithes were the vid that you owed God. If the church did anything that was actually helpful to people, it was only for the purposes of proselytization.
Yeah, and yeah, that's those are things I don't like, right? Those are aspects of different denominations that I definitely there's a reason I'm not Assemblies of God, right? There's I don't like those things. Sorry, my dog is jumping on the couch somehow, like bouncing up and down. It's very distracting.
So there's one other question that I'd like to cover before we wrap up for tonight, and this is from Griffin. If this question wasn't asked, how did your traditions change due to COVID this year? Well, I didn't travel to go see family. Normally I go see my in-laws. We did not do that this year. So that was one of the big things. Another one was because of the absolute wreck that COVID left my finances, I did not get a lot of presents for anybody this year. I think maybe only one or two people got them just because we had an emergency outside and we lost a bunch in our savings during COVID because, as I'm going to mention in this upcoming video, hubby and I both got severely sick. We both ended up hospitalized, him twice, me once. It's not necessarily the bills because the bill had been passed that made COVID the problem of my insurance, but it was the time lost at work because my husband got hospitalized before the bill passed that opened up unemployment to people who were furloughed. So he was still technically employed, but he did not get paid when he was out of work for a little while. He got paid for the first 2 weeks, but he was sick for over a month. So he didn't get paid for those next 2 weeks because he didn't have the sick leave to cover it. So we were in a position where we lost, 2 weeks of his income. We lost 5 months of my other partner's income. And we only got 1 month of unemployment for that because that stuff passed later in the year, but our state was hit first. So COVID kind of made it so I couldn't do the thing that we usually do, which is we all vote on between 1 and 3 friends every year that we do gifts for, and that way we can get something really, really thoughtful for them. And we weren't able to do that this year. Beafeld, what about you?
So my wife is, her grandmother actually just passed. But
I'm so sorry.
Her grandmother was in the process of passing for the last basically week and a half. She went up there to make her last trip and was exposed while she went up there. And so she's been quarantining ever since, away from me, in the same house, but in a different part of the house. She's in the reading room on our first floor, and me and baby are on the main floor, which is the second floor, and so we haven't been able to be together. You know, this is usually when we have I know that 12 days are usually supposed to be after, but we've always done it before because it was what was most convenient to us as a build up towards Yule. And so we would do 12 days of celebration before and give small gifts and things like that. And I haven't been able to see her. You know, we, sanitize our elbows and rub our elbows together, about once a day. But haven't decorated my tree. Haven't done very much anything except for the religious side of things. I've done lots of quiet contemplation and candle lighting. So, if anything, I'm more in line with Advent this year. So COVID has really wrecked the whole thing for that. But it's wrecked my entire year because we haven't met up with anybody. We usually have little get-togethers at least once a month. Haven't met up with anyone since March.
Maddie, what about you?
I haven't. I'm not seeing a lot of my family. My parents are close by, so my husband and I are gonna go see them. But I haven't seen my sister in 18 months. But she's in Japan and can't leave. I also haven't. I haven't been to church since this all started. So I would like to go to that midnight mass, and I would like, taking communion is very important to me. And I find a lot of significance in it, but I don't, that's not a safe thing to do right now, especially not with a communal cup. My state has no restrictions have been put in place, so it hasn't been safe ever.
Where in the South are you?
I'm in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. I'm over in Georgia, so I was just curious.
Yeah, we've had every ICU bed has been full in the whole state for 2 months.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely, in my personal faith, kind of in that Advent season. I appreciate the space for it, but it definitely feels very different this year. Yeah, sorry to get everybody down. That's where I'm at.
It's the year of Lent, more like.
Yeah, it is. It really is the year of Lent.
Hey, remember when you were on, you talked about allyship meant supporting each other even when we disagree or when we're struggling, being there for each other. This is part of allyship. Even being a downer, I think a lot of us feel very similarly. Many of us have lost loved ones. Several of us have been in the hospital ourselves or know somebody who has. So it's that time of year where we are supposed to support one another. And this year is a particularly rough one. I'm sure our ancestors had years full of plagues where these sorts of Christmas feasts were, or Yuletide feasts or Poseideia or Saturnalia or I can't pronounce it in Sumerian, Calon. I'm sorry.
It's literally just a bunch of vowels and consonants. You say that coming from a language like Haida. Come on now.
I don't know the language, so I can't pronounce it.
It's a manana.
I will just say the boat festival.
I heard it's a banana.
But I think that our ancestors had rough years too and had to come together during this time. So I think it's okay to stop and reflect and be sad.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the things that I do love about sort of the spirit, I think, of many solstice festivals that are near the winter solstice. This idea, a lot of them have symbology around light or things that are evergreen, so this idea of I think it's very, very human and very telling of the human spirit that multiple cultures have developed, holidays or things that are surrounding the darkest night of the year, right? In the darkest times of the year, and when, planting and harvest are still months away, and yet we still have a feast, right? It's very, in my mind, it's very defiant. It's an assurance
we have enough to get through the winter, and next year will come. We have faith in the gods that they will bring the next year.
Yeah, and that the darkness, and the cold and the lean times are not forever. And I think that's something I've been reflecting on a lot this season.
There will be a next year for most of us, and for those of us that are not, we will light candles and pray in their honor. At least the pagans among us will.
Yeah.
The ancestors will not be forgotten. Our loved ones will not be. And that's one of the beautiful things about being pagan, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Calon, what about you? Have you had your practices changed this year?
Not really. Funny enough, mainly because a lot of my practices involve nature and the sky. And plague doesn't affect the sky, so there's that.
I feel like you can't take the sky from me. You should just play in the background because Firefly.
Yeah. Plague actually made sky clearer in many places, right? Because the remarkable pollution decrease this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually a lot of turtles were able to lay their eggs and had the biggest birth rates this year. Because there were less people on the beaches. There are some endangered species that actually were able to reproduce more than they had in, decades because there were less tourists around.
Yeah, because of Nergal.
All right.
Nergal. Oh my gosh. Oh gosh.
Yeah, we have a plague god.
Went there. Yep.
We have. Diseases were thought to in part come from Nergal. Lamentations are a thing for a reason.
So, let's go ahead and do the shill portion. I've already mentioned what I'm going to be doing in the future. Like I said, I'm not going to say who yet until the video comes out, but there be a pagan in the community who's got me feeling some type of way. And if you follow me on Twitter, you know who it is. It's not Calon for once. No,
I need to fix that.
No, you don't, because you don't need to go setting up a bunch of gatherings and spreading COVID to a bunch of your followers like a freaking irresponsible asshole. Especially a channel that has over 20,000 subscribers, you really don't need to be doing that. If you spontaneously came into being with that was not, you would not go around kind of downplaying the severity of the virus to your followers and using suicide as an excuse. I've got some problems, guys. I feel some type of way, and y'all are about to hear all about it because I'm a COVID survivor and I got some issues.
Yeah, demons have an easy enough time doing their work. They don't need my help.
Bayfeld, do you want to talk about what you do on your channel a little bit? And you said that you might be doing some more work fairly soon. So do you want to talk about some things that you've got coming up, even if it's a little bit down the way?
Well, I mean, I've been doing a lot more on my blog than I have on my my channel. I need to do more, but it's one of those things where I don't exactly do anything particularly regularly, and the things that I do, I just sort of pop up and do within a couple days notice of doing them. A bit spontaneous then, but I'm open to suggestions. I'm wanting to do some more stuff with Wolf. Wolf has been talking about some very interesting topics, and I might try and get in on something with him.
Yeah, you and I talked about a couple of those topics, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've got a video that Bayfeld and I also talked about coming up probably Saturday, because I pushed that. It was originally going to be Thursday's video, but I pushed it because anger overrides the senses. But I've got a video on votive offerings coming out, and Bayfeld and I have very similar kind of philosophy on what to do with votive offerings, which basically is don't use them for anything other than sitting on your altar. If you're not going to keep them there, break them.
Yes, I'm very much looking forward to your video on that. I will totally be streaming that one.
Maddie, what have you got coming up?
Yeah, so I've been doing a series on my channel on, so my channel is a science communication channel, and I focus mostly on like Earth science and geophysics stuff. So I've been doing a climate dynamics series. So it's, we're like 5 episodes in, and we're almost done talking about space. We haven't even gotten to the atmosphere yet.
Atmosphere?
Yeah, turns out Earth has one. Who knew?
Yeah.
It's very filled with gases that should be in much lower concentrations than they are.
Yeah.
That was Earth's first mistake, was having an atmosphere.
Oh my gosh.
Right, that one, yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's got this terrible infestation of this thing called life. Like, it's horrible. Like, why would a rock want that?
It's a great question. So I'm doing, they're shorter videos. So kind of every video is like one concept, and it's no more than 10 minutes. So it's a little more, you don't have to have a strong background in science or math to like get the gist. So I kind of explain things like at that level, but it is more in depth of like, all right, team, we're going to talk about what black body equilibrium temperature is and why that matters for climate. So I think it's fun, and I'm trying to get some just good, easily digestible but accurate information out on just like how does a planet's climate change, and so you can have some good background in like, no, I know that climate change that we're seeing is man-made, and I understand why that is, and so getting into the actual science of all of that, but hopefully in a digestible way.
Have you tackled? I'm brand new to you, so I haven't watched any of your stuff. Have you tackled the relationship between climate change, temperature rising, and the decrease in the availability for crops to produce food?
Not yet. Not yet.
My biology teacher covered that. It was very depressing.
So right now, like I said, I've gone through natural climate cycles, so Milankovitch cycles, which are changes in Earth's orbit that change our climate, the periodicity of those, how they play off each other, some of the effects you can expect to see, and why that's not what we're seeing right now.
All right, very cool. I'm gonna have to check you out.
Links, I actually, if you guys refresh the page, I have links to everybody who showed up in the description.
Great.
I was actually good about that for once. So everybody who has hung out here, links are in the description. Please subscribe to my guests. These guys are all fucking wonderful. All of you are close friends in the community that I have talked to fairly regularly. Like, you guys are freaking amazing. Like, even if we go like long periods of time without talking and then like spend an entire day messaging back and forth, which is usually what happens with my friends. All right, Calon, what have you got coming up?
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, I currently have plans to, basically what I'm doing is I'm going through Enheduanna's various poems, which, for those who don't know, she's a priest. She's the head priestess of the Temple of Nana and she came about. She's the daughter of Sargon of Akkad, not the failure of a Sargon, but the one who actually ended up creating an entire empire that expanded almost to India.
Do we even talk about the other one?
I mean, let's just call him not Carl Benjamin, because like his name's out.
Yeah, we'll call him Carl. Yeah, not Carl, but the actual Sargon of Akkad. And basically, what ended up happening is that the southern Sumerian states were starting to get a little they're like, these Akkadians, they're coming in here with all these new rules. We don't like that. And so basically what Sargon did is he sent his daughter to Ur, which may or may not be the same Ur as in the Bible, depending on which scholar you ask.
Abraham.
Yeah, of Abraham. And he sent her down there, and she became a pretty beloved to the point to where she pretty much ascended and became a god. So, yeah, an attendant of Nana, the moon god.
And this Ur is a happening place.
Oh, it's very happening. Like, it was very happening around that time. a lot of people don't realize, but we actually have quite a bit from that era. We have their calendars and whatnot.
Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. It was a wonderful stream for the holiday. Thank you guys in the audience for chilling with us. Many of you for the entire time. There was over 30 of you that have been here this whole time, and the chat was popping. So thank you guys again all for hanging out with me. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. And happy holidays to everybody. Like, I know that these are dark times. I know that a lot of us, you know, there are faces that we won't get to see again because of things that have happened. But we have each other at the very least. And we have the positivity and the negativity, the pain and the joy and the community that we can share it in. One that I might add, I do not charge money for people to enter. So, thank you guys again. And remember, we're stronger together. Always.
And get a snake.